All right, let's dive in. Today, we are going to tackle Apache Kafka. We're going to unpack what it is and why it's become this central nervous system for so many modern companies. We'll demystify it and see how it really unlocks a whole new way of building software, what people call event-driven architecture. So, let's get into it.
So to get your head in the right space, I want you to think about this one simple question. When your different apps and services talk to each other, is it like a phone call, where one has to dial the other and then wait for them to pick up? Or is it more like a radio broadcast, where one station sends out a signal, and really anyone with a radio can tune in? That little analogy right there, that's the key to this whole thing.
So let's start with the big why. Why do we even need something like Kafka in the first place? Well, the answer usually comes down to this really common problem in a lot of software. It's brittle. It breaks easily, and that causes some major headaches, especially when things start to get big.
And here are those two ideas side by side. On the left, you've got that classic phone call model. We call it request response. Service A needs something from B, so it calls and just waits. Then it needs something from C, so it calls and waits again. It's like this tangled up phone cord, right? Everything is so tightly connected. If service B is just slow, or even worse, if it goes down, the whole chain grinds to a halt. But look at the right. That's our radio broadcast, the event-driven model. Service A just announces something happened. It just broadcasts it. Then services B and C, they can listen in and react totally on their own time, completely independently. They don't even need to know the other one exists. This is what we call being decoupled, and it is the absolute secret to building software that can actually grow and adapt without falling apart.
Okay, so to get from that tangled phone cord to that flexible radio broadcast, you have to make a pretty fundamental shift in how you think. It's all about moving away from giving direct commands and instead just stating facts about what's already happened. This is what we mean when we say thinking in events.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? You're not telling the shipping service, hey, create a label. No. Instead, you're just announcing a fact. A payment was processed. And then it's totally up to the shipping service to hear that fact and decide for itself, oh, a payment was processed. I guess I should probably create a label. It's a subtle change in perspective, but it is so powerful.
So you might be thinking, okay, if all these services are just shouting facts into the void, where do all those announcements go? They need a central place to live, right? And the solution is to have this single shared record, kind of like a supercharged digital logbook for the whole company. Every important event gets written down in order, creating this permanent, unchangeable history of everything that's ever happened.
And that, right there, brings us to the star of the show. That whole digital logbook idea, that's exactly what Apache Kafka was built to be. It is the technology that makes this whole event-driven thing possible, especially at a massive scale. So let's break down the core pieces.
First up, the most basic building block of this whole system, the event. Just think of it as a tiny, unchangeable fact, something that happened in the business. An order was placed. A payment was processed. Each one of those is like a single-line item, a permanent entry written into our logbook. It's one little piece of the big story.
Now, of course, you can't just throw all these different facts into one giant messy log. That'd be chaos. So to keep things organized, Kafka groups events into what it calls topics. A topic is really just a dedicated logbook for one specific category of events. So all your order-related events, they go into the orders topic. All the shipment events, they go into the shipments topic. Super simple. It just keeps everything neat and tidy.
So who's actually writing these events into the topics? Well, that's the job of a producer. Anytime an application needs to announce that something happened, like our payment service successfully processing a payment, it acts as a producer. It just creates that event and sends it off to the right logbook, the right topic in Kafka.
And then, on the other side of the coin, we have the consumer. A consumer is any application that needs to react to these events. It basically subscribes to the topics it cares about, and Kafka just feeds it the new events as they come in. And here's where the real magic happens. A single event, written just once, can be read by tons of different consumers, and they all act on it for their own unique reasons. And the best part? The producer has no idea who's listening. It doesn't have to care.
Now, a quick but really important technical note here. For anyone who's dealt with Kafka in the past, you probably remember having to manage this whole other complex system called Zookeeper. It added a lot of headaches. Well, the great news is that modern Kafka, in what they call craft mode, doesn't need it anymore. This makes setting up and managing Kafka so much simpler than it used to be. It's a huge deal.
So when you see Kafka being used in the real world, in a professional environment, there are a few key choices that just make life way easier. We just talked about using craft mode to simplify things. On top of that, it's absolutely crucial to define a clear structure for your events, what we call a schema. This is what prevents data chaos, because it makes sure every producer and consumer agrees on exactly what the data looks like. You put these tools together, and you've got a really robust, production-ready system.
Okay, so we've got the basics down, right? Producers write events to topics and consumers read them. Simple enough. But that simple foundation, that unlocks some truly mind-blowing capabilities. Let's look at the superpowers this gives your entire architecture.
Because Kafka isn't just for sending simple little notifications around, oh no. You can use it to build these massive, real-time data pipelines. You can keep totally different databases perfectly in sync using something called change data capture. You can create super detailed audit logs or fan out alerts to a dozen different systems at once. And, as we're about to see, you can manage these incredibly complex business workflows, all without your services being tangled together.
This right here, the Saga pattern, shows off one of those superpowers perfectly. Let's just walk through in order. First, an order-placed event gets published. The payment service hears that, it tries to charge the credit card, and then it publishes its own event. Payment succeeded. Now the shipping service, it's been listening for that specific event, and when it hears it, it kicks into gear and creates the shipping label. But, and this is the crucial part, what if the payment fails? No problem. The payment service just publishes a payment failed event instead. Some other service can be listening for that failure and automatically trigger a fix, like canceling the order or emailing the customer. The whole complicated process just works, and there's no single service in charge that can bring the whole thing down.
So when you put all these pieces together, Kafka really stops being just a messaging tool. It becomes something way more fundamental to your whole organization. It literally becomes the central nervous system for all of your data.
Just think about it. That permanent, ordered log of everything that happens. An order gets placed, a package ships, a customer logs in. That becomes the one undeniable single source of truth for your entire business. It's a complete, real-time history of your whole operation, and it's right there, accessible to any service that needs it.
So we'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. By treating your data not as a bunch of static files in a database, but as this living, breathing, unfolding story of events, Kafka gives you this incredibly powerful new way to look at your business. So the question is, if you had access to that real-time story, what amazing things could you build? Thanks for watching.